This is not a clash. This is a come together.
For decades, Bermuda has been known around the world for one thing: mystery. Stories of vanished ships, missing aircraft, and the infamous Bermuda Triangle have turned this tiny island into one of the most intriguing places on Earth. But beyond the legends lies a far more fascinating story, one that has nothing to do with curses or the supernatural. Lost in the middle of the North Atlantic, Bermuda is smaller than many American cities. The nearest mainland is more than 640 miles away, leaving the island isolated in one of the world's most powerful oceans. At first glance, it doesn't seem like the kind of place where a nation could ever thrive. There are no rivers, no lakes, very little land suitable for farming. Natural resources are scarce, and for centuries, powerful Atlantic hurricanes have battered the island with relentless force. Almost everything that has allowed civilizations to flourish elsewhere is missing here. And yet, against all odds, more than 64,000 people call Bermuda home today. Even more remarkably, they enjoy one of the highest incomes per person anywhere in the world, higher than Switzerland, higher than Singapore, and higher than many of the world's largest economies. So how is that possible? How did people build one of the wealthiest societies on Earth on an island that seems to lack almost everything needed for survival? The answer lies not in the mysteries that made Bermuda famous, but in something far more extraordinary, something hidden beneath the island's unique geography, its history, and the remarkable choices made by the people who chose to call this isolated rock in the Atlantic home. But before we uncover that story, let us know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy exploring the world's most fascinating places, don't forget to subscribe and join us for the journey. On a map, Bermuda is so small you could blink and miss it. The entire archipelago covers only about 54 square kilometers, smaller than most mid-sized city districts, pieced together from 181 small islands and rocky outcrops, linked by bridges and winding coastal roads. Bermuda doesn't sit on a continental shelf at all. It's the northernmost coral archipelago on Earth, built on top of an extinct volcano that went dormant millions of years ago. What you see today is just the very tip still poking above the waterline. Everything else is buried deep underwater. This place is famous for having a truly unique beach. Horseshoe Bay is one of the exceptions. The beach's famous pink hue comes from the shells of a microscopic marine organism called foraminifera, mixed in with crushed coral limestone over thousands of years of wave action. Imagine yourself lying on a pink beach at sunset with a refreshing coconut in your hand. What a truly beautiful day. Beneath the island's dry limestone surface lies an entire cave system, with startlingly clear underground lakes and stalactite formations that took tens of thousands of years to form. This isn't drinkable fresh water, but its very existence is a reminder that even a piece of land that looks empty on the surface can be hiding secrets of its own. If you're willing to dig, the nature here is beautiful, but also very harsh. Every year, this place experiences countless storms, but that's not necessarily bad news, because storms are a part of life here. They provide something incredibly important, nourishing the life of the entire archipelago. For hundreds of years, the people here have had exactly one water source to rely on: rain. To deal with that Bermuda law requires every house to be built with a stepped, whitewashed roof channeling rainwater down through small grooves into an underground tank beneath the home. Seen from above, the whole island looks dusted in snow, but it isn't. It's tens of thousands of miniature water filtration systems, each one keeping exactly one household alive. Farmland fares no better than water. The soil is mostly thin limestone from coral, doesn't hold moisture, and there simply isn't much of it. So nearly 90% of Bermuda's food and consumer goods have to be imported by sea or air. But geography only explains the hard part. To understand why people still chose to live here and live well, we have to go back to the moment it all began. A shipwreck that seemed like the end of the story. Beneath Bermuda's crystal clear waters lie more than 300 shipwrecks, the densest concentration anywhere in the world for a body of water this small. It sounds like a curse, and for centuries, to sailors, it was exactly that. The razor-sharp reefs surrounding the island claimed countless ships from the colonial era all the way into the 20th century. And that was also the opportunity for people to discover this place. The year is 1609. An English fleet sails out of Plymouth, bound for the young colony of Jamestown, Virginia. Midway through the crossing, they hit a violent storm. The fleet's flagship was separated from the rest and torn open on Bermuda's razor-sharp reefs off the east coast. In that moment, almost everyone aboard assumed this was the end. No maps, no one who had ever set foot on this island intending to stay. But when the survivors staggered ashore, they found something no one expected. This seemingly deserted island was strangely abundant. Bermuda cedar forests grew thick enough to build new ships. Sea turtles, fish, and seabirds were so plentiful they barely needed to be hunted. This is the story's first turning point. A maritime disaster that seemed like tragedy instead became a discovery that changed the fate of an entire land. 400 years after that shipwreck, Bermuda's population is a fabric woven from several threads. Descendants of English settlers, of Africans forcibly brought over as enslaved people starting in the 1600s, and of Caribbean communities who migrated here later. Isolation, the very thing that seemed like nothing but a burden, quietly forced these different groups closer together than almost anywhere else. On a small island, no one can live completely apart from everyone else. Interdependence isn't a lifestyle choice here, it's a condition of survival. Out of that cultural friction, one distinct tradition was born: Gambi. These are street performance troupes in brightly colored costumes and elaborate masks, moving to drum beats that blend African rhythms, Caribbean influence, and touches of indigenous American style. Gambi emerged during the era of slavery, when people stripped of nearly everything else still found ways to hold on to their identity. Through music, through dance, through performances once staged secretly in the streets. Today, Gambi is no longer forbidden. It's one of Bermuda's proudest cultural symbols, appearing at every major festival on the island. Scarcity has left its mark on the local character too. From an early age, Bermudian children are taught to value every drop of rainwater, because unlike almost everywhere else on Earth, there is no backup source if the tank runs dry. And there's one small but distinctly Bermudian detail, nearly impossible to find anywhere else. The business suit paired with knee-high shorts, worn with tall socks and polished dress shoes, known as Bermuda shorts. This isn't beachwear. It's official attire, worn in bank, boardrooms, even courtrooms. It's a very particular compromise between the buttoned-up formality the English settlers brought with them and the tropical heat their bodies eventually had to adapt to. None of these details Gombe. The instinct to conserve every resource, even the suit and shorts combo, are accidents. They're living proof that the people here have been, and still are, constantly adapting to a piece of land that was never going to make things easy. And those values don't just live in people's heads. They show up in every home, every street, every daily meal. If you woke up one morning in Bermuda, you won't see long lines of cars the way you would in most cities. Bermuda law limits every household to owning just one car, partly because the roads are too narrow, the land too limited to hold much more traffic. So mopeds and scooters are the primary way people get around, weaving along the winding coastal roads. Head to a grocery store and you'll notice something. Almost everything on the shelves has already made a long journey to get there. From the US, from Europe, crossing the ocean by cargo ship or plane. A storm delaying a shipment by even a few days is enough to nudge prices upward. That's why Bermuda ranks among the most expensive places to live in the world. A cup of coffee, a carton of milk, each one carrying the hidden cost of an island that has to import its own survival. But not everything travels far to reach the table. The waters around the island are rich with seafood, a rare gift nature actually did extend to this otherwise stingy piece of land. From that, Bermuda's signature dish emerged. A rich fish chowder, finished with a splash of dark rum and a dash of fiery sherry pepper sauce. A recipe that blends local ingredients with English Caribbean culinary influence. In the afternoon, you might come across a lush green golf course right up against the shoreline. Bermuda has one of the highest densities of golf courses per capita anywhere in the world. A pastime once reserved for the finance elite that has since woven itself into everyday island life. Piece by piece, even the most ordinary parts of life in Bermuda, the roof, the car, the meal, carry the imprint of a quiet, ongoing battle. How do you live well on a piece of land that never gives you anything for free? But to really understand the soul of this place, we have to step away from daily routine and head toward the landmarks that have come to define the island. For centuries, Bermuda was one of the British Empire's most important naval bases in the Atlantic, controlling shipping lanes between Europe and the Americas. The Royal Naval Dockyard, with its thick stone walls, once resupplied and repaired warships, protecting an island that had nothing to defend itself with except its strategic location. Today, those same fortress walls no longer house weapons. They house museums, shops, and a marina welcoming visitors from around the world. From a military outpost built for self-defense, Bermuda turned its own isolation into a destination, a place the world now comes looking for instead of the other way around. And this might be the most remarkable story of the entire journey through Bermuda. With no gold to mine, no oil to extract, no land for large-scale farming, the people of Bermuda learned to sell something entirely intangible: safety. Starting in the 1970s, after a string of major disasters shook the traditional U.S. insurance industry, companies began setting up shop in Bermuda, drawn by a flexible regulatory environment and no corporate income tax. What started as a handful of companies gradually grew into the island's single largest economic pillar: insurance and reinsurance. Today, those unassuming office buildings tucked into pastel colonial architecture in downtown Hamilton manage roughly $1.6 trillion in insurance-related assets, writing about $268 billion in gross premiums every year, numbers that dwarf the scale of a 54 square kilometer island. With nothing to dig out of the ground, Bermuda found the one resource it actually had in abundance: the ability to price and carry risk, something the entire world, no matter how wealthy, will always need. Let's go back to the question we opened with: an island with no rivers, no mines, no farmland. So how did they survive, and how did they get rich? For the first settlers, survival in Bermuda was never about conquering nature. It was about negotiating with it. Almost everything they needed had to be earned the hard way. The land offered little comfort either. Bermuda's thin layer of soil rested on hard limestone, making farming difficult from the very beginning. Every small field represented years of patient work, only to remain vulnerable to the next hurricane sweeping in from the Atlantic. A single storm could destroy months of labor overnight, and when that happened, there was no choice but to begin again. That cycle repeated itself for generations. Storm after storm, season after season, generation after generation. Living in Bermuda meant accepting that nature would always have the final word. Something remarkable happened. Instead of becoming discouraged by constant hardship, the people of Bermuda slowly built a culture around resilience itself. They designed homes with thick limestone walls, strong enough to withstand powerful winds. They developed the island's distinctive white-stepped roofs, not because they looked beautiful, but because every rooftop served as a lifeline, capturing precious rainwater for the families below. What visitors admire today as charming island architecture was originally an ingenious solution to a problem of survival. Over time, this way of thinking spread far beyond architecture. When the land couldn't provide enough, they turned to the sea. When natural resources were scarce, they invested in skills. When geography limited their options, they looked beyond geography. Little by little, Bermuda stopped asking, "What does this island have?" Instead, its people began asking a far more powerful question: what can we build with what we already have? That simple shift in perspective would eventually transform one of the most isolated islands in the Atlantic into one of the wealthiest societies on Earth. Because history has shown time and again that prosperity rarely belongs to those who inherit the most resources. More often, it belongs to those who learn to create opportunity where almost none seems to exist. But not everything in Bermuda glitters the way those trillion-dollar figures suggest. The staggeringly high cost of living isn't just a fun fact to mention. It's a real weight on the shoulders of anyone not working in finance. The gap between international insurance professionals and local workers keeps widening. Bermuda's population is aging quickly, and it's getting harder for younger workers to put down roots as housing costs climb. And perhaps the biggest threat comes from the very thing that built the island's wealth in the first place. Global tax reform pressure is now forcing Bermuda to reconsider the zero corporate tax policy that drew hundreds of international insurance firms here over the past half-century. As for the island itself, most of Bermuda sits less than 30 meters above sea level. The same ocean that once handed Bermuda its biggest opportunities is now under the pressure of climate change, its most direct threat. But maybe the way Bermudians choose to face these limits, the same way they once faced a shipwreck in 1609, is the clearest answer yet to the question we started with. No rivers, no mines, not enough land to feed itself. That's what Bermuda started with. And by any reasonable logic, that should have been a formula for a poor, forgotten speck in the ocean. But Bermuda chose a different path. They didn't wait for resources to show up. They learned to catch every drop of rain, to protect the rare species that barely survive, and eventually to turn their forced expertise in risk and limitation into an industry the whole world now depends on. Bermuda isn't wealthy because it has a lot. It's wealthy because it was forced to learn how to live wisely with very little, and in doing so, turn that very little into something no one else could replace. Maybe that's a question worth asking ourselves too. When we run into our own limit, do we spend our energy complaining about what we don't have, or do we learn to turn it into the one thing that makes us different? If you enjoyed this amazing journey through Bermuda, please hit like and subscribe to the channel. That will motivate the channel to explore more interesting places. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.